All right, welcome. We are going to be covering the space summary for the dates of August 28th to September 11 of 2024. Here we go. So, real quickly, SpaceX on August 28th, they had a launch of another Starlink mission to put 21 satellites into orbit. The payload deployed successfully, but the first stage booster stuck the landing and actually fell over and exploded on the platform ship, a shortfall of gravitas. This was the 23rd successful launch of the first stage, but only had 22 successful landings. The boosters were supposed to only have 10 flights in total per Elon Musk initially, so I would say it's a huge success that it went over that amount, more than twice fold. Following the explosion of the first stage, the FAA briefly grounded the SpaceX fleet. However, 2 days later, they were allowed to return to flight, and on August the 30th, they established a new record time between missions from different pads. So they launched their first flight and then a second flight only an hour and 5 minutes after. And this is the aftermath of the first stage booster as it returned to port. And right now I'm going to show you what it looked like when it was landing. Here's a quick preview.
Stage 1 landing lane deploy.
And at 50% speed. And when it was live streaming, the stream cut out very quickly. The people at SpaceX removed the video footage of the booster falling down and exploding relatively quickly. Next, we have Starliner. It returned back to Earth, but without its crew. This was the crewed flight of Boeing Starliner, the troublesome version that was supposed to be a replacement of the Soyuz, reliance of the Soyuz Russian rockets. So this was NASA's attempt at contracting private companies to freight astronauts to the International Space Station. But the Starliner has been bogged with numerous developmental problems leading up to this point, and this was the first crewed flight. And on ascent, it had 5 out of 28 thrusters give up, and astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sunita Williams had to actually take over via manual control to get up to the ISS, the International Space Station. It was later revealed that the thrusters overheated, causing the Teflon poppet seal to expand and restrict flow of the oxidizer, and this was on top of other issues that they've had with ongoing helium leaks. On September the 1st, when the Starliner was docked at the ISS, an ominous sound actually started coming from the Starliner, and this sent the internet into a frenzy given its close resemblance to the alien transmission from the movie Contact. So let's now have a look at some of the sounds that we heard. So this is what we heard from Starliner.
Yeah, I'll do it one more time, and I'll let y'all scratch your heads to see if you figure out what's going on. Here we go. All right, over to you.
And for comparison, I'm just going to play the sound that they heard in the movie Contact for the alien transmission. And this sent the internet into a frenzy given the similarities. Here we go. Now, it was revealed that the source of the noise was actually feedback between the International Space Station and Starliner. and it was nothing of significant concern. So it was relatively easy fix, but it did cause quite a big discussion all over the internet. Given along the lines of all the issues that Boeing's Starliner had with development and with the launch and the ongoing helium leaks, and they weren't entirely sure as to how to fix and the issue as well as the source of the problem, NASA actually decided to release the Starliner from the International Space Station to descend back to Earth without its two crew. So what ended up, what should have been an 8-day mission to the International Space Station is now going to end up being an 8-month mission with the two crew, Butch Wilmore and Sunita Williams, unfortunately being picked up only in February when SpaceX can rotate up different astronauts to the ISS. And on initial descent of the Starliner, NASA indicated that everything was okay. However, later reports revealed that they had 1 out of 12 controlled jets fail to ignite, as well as a glitch that caused the spacecraft's navigation system to go down briefly during the re-entry. So all around, not so good news for Boeing and the Starliner program. On to the next slide, where we have further not so good news, the Advanced Composite Solar Sail System. It did deploy. It unfortunately has had some issues. Reports say that it is tumbling end over end, but NASA did not exactly comment as to what that meant. If we were to go back, this was launched in April 23rd using Rocket Lab's Electron vehicle, and was a test of the solar sail system, which is something that the Breakthrough Starshot program is supposed to use similar technology to get a small spacecraft to the Alpha Centauri region. Not so good news for this project as well. In other news, there was an asteroid dubbed 2024 RW1. It entered the atmosphere over the Philippines, and I have a video coming up of that. This was on September the 4th, around 12:40 p.m., and it was discovered that day. Fortunately, it had no harm to any humans. It was only about 3 feet in size, so about 1 meter in diameter. And how does this compare to the asteroid that killed off the dinosaurs? Well, this one that landed over the atmosphere in Philippines would have had to be 10,000 times bigger to be the size of the one that killed off the dinosaurs. And let's just see the video footage of it entering the atmosphere. And there it is. One more quick time. In other news, the BP Colombo completes its 4th Mercury flyby, and this was back on September the 5th. And this is a flyby of the joint mission by ESA and JAX, the Japanese Space Agency, as well as the European Space Agency. The Orbiter spacecraft was launched in October of 2018, with orbital insertion in Mercury expected in November 2026. And it's just supposed to study the evolution of Mercury and how, and educate and inform the development of our solar system. The next news of interest was China's secret reusable spaceplane. It lands after 266 days in orbit, and this made it the second longest flight for the spacecraft. This image that we have here, that little triangle in the center, that is actually a dried up salt lake, and it's taken by an ESA, European Space Agency satellite, and it just shows the landing location for where this spacecraft returned. It was launched back in December 14 of 2023. Or sorry, 2024. And we don't have images of the actual Chinese spacecraft, but it is similar to the X-37B created by Boeing, which is the American version of the reusable spacecraft, also known as the Orbital Test Vehicle. And so far, these are the 3 missions that it's had so far. So the first mission lasted 2 days, the second 276 days, and the third mission just over 266 days. Oh, and I stand corrected. It was launched December 2023. I misspoke. Next, the Taiwan 3. It is now expected to launch 2 years earlier, going from a date of 2030 to a date of 2028. And this is per the chief designer of the program, Liu Jizhong. This is the China Mars sample return mission, and it is expected to beat NASA to the punch and return the first sample from Mars before anyone else on planet Earth does. And the NASA Mars sample return program has actually been having some trouble lately, with their program expected to reach a price tag of $11 billion. Given this very expensive cost and very expensive program, they have been turning to private companies for support to hope to lower the cost of this acquisition of Mars sample. Responses from the private industry and also from JPL, so the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, are expected later this fall of this year. And then Starship, this is a tweet from Elon Musk. Starship is expected to reach Mars in 2026. The first are supposed to be uncrewed, and then following that would be in 4 years' time would be a crewed flight to Mars. So that would be in 2030. And we just have a funny little image that we found on Reddit, and it just shows the progression of every 6 years for the SpaceX program. So in 2018, they had the Falcon Heavy launch Elon Musk's Roadster into a pseudo orbit of Mars. And then in 2024, we have the Polaris Dawn mission, which is the private commercial first spacewalk, EVA, extravehicular activity. And then 6 years later, we're expected to have a crewed flight to Mars. Now, you see that Elon Musk is there without a helmet. Unfortunately, that part is a little bit inaccurate. You would need a helmet to survive in the atmosphere that there is currently on Mars, as there is not enough oxygen. However, there are many space missions and probes and rovers, many rovers that have been involved on creating oxygen in situ with the materials that they have currently on Mars. Next, we have the Indian mission to the moon. So this is the third mission to the moon that India sent over. And this was by the Indian Space Research Organization. And this they found some seismic data, the first since the Apollo missions, with the last mission being in 1970. So approximately 55 years later, so they detected about 250 50 data points of seismic activity. About 200 of that is attributed to the rover, whereas only 50 of unknown origin, hinting at some possible unknown lunar seismic activity. Also dubbed as moonquakes. So this mission was launched in July of 2023 with insertion, orbital insertion back in August of 2023. And as I alluded to earlier, we have Polaris Dawn. It was launched, and they are expected to have the first private commercial, oops, I spelled commercial wrong, first private commercial spacewalk. This mission is funded by Jared, a billionaire, and it is the furthest that humans from Earth will have traveled since the Apollo program put astronauts on the moon and since the Gemini program. It's also the first private extravehicular activity using the new SpaceX suits. And on top of that, they're carrying 36 experiments on board. So they're going to the Van Allen radiation belt, and it's important to fly through this region as quickly as possible to limit exposure to radiation. Some electronics are sensitive to that, and they have to be given special considerations during manufacturing to protect them from radiation and ensure no defects and ensure everything functions well. And with the launch of Polaris Dawn, we now have a record 19 humans in space. The previous record was 17, and that was back in May of 2023. This record was actually beat now with 19 humans in space because of the Boeing mishap. The Boeing astronauts, so the extra two that are now on the ISS, American astronauts. They were supposed to be back on Earth, but unfortunately they're not. So now we have 7 Americans on the ISS, 5 Russian on the ISS, 4 American private civilians on the SpaceX Polaris Dawn mission, as well as 3 Chinese astronauts on their space station. So 19 total in space. What a record. And starships are meant to fly. There was recently a blog post put out by SpaceX calling out the FAA and the EPA so for their inability to complete licensing paperwork at a quick enough pace to support the rapid iterative design for the Starship program. It's not the first time that Elon Musk has publicly expressed his frustrations with the government regulations and the slowness that and the pace that they're limiting the SpaceX from advancing and further developing their rockets. In the past, he has called to have a dedicated FAA official for SpaceX, given the high launch frequency and need for rapid deployment. Only time will tell as to where this will lead, but definitely these blog posts and public messages by Elon Musk are really pointed towards the government at really making some changes and allowing innovation and further development of the space program happen more quickly. In other news, the Europa Clipper, it's cleared for launch back in May of 2024. There were some transistors that were misbehaving, and on September the 9th, NASA gave it the all clear. The final review hurdle was passed, and they are expected to launch. Their launch window opens up on October the 10th and are expected to be going on the Falcon Heavy rocket provided by SpaceX. In other news, ESA's JUICE mission, the Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer, they found ingredients for life in Earth's atmosphere. No duh. It's calibrating its instruments on the recent flyby of Earth that occurred on August the 20th, and it determined that Earth is habitable. It's expected to reach Jupiter in 2031. And lastly, we have Land Space. The Chinese private company completed their vertical takeoff and vertical landing of their, I will not be able to pronounce this, but of their rocket. It was a 10-kilometer test flight, and they plan for an orbital flight of this same rocket in 2025. How does this compare to some of the other rockets that we know? Well, the rocket has a diameter of 4.5 meters in comparison to the Falcon 9, which is 3.7 meters. This Chinese rocket has a height of 76 meters, whereas the Falcon 9 has a height of just under 70 meters in height. And the Chinese rocket can put 18.3 tons into low Earth orbit in its reusable state, whereas the Falcon 9 can put 17.5 tons in low Earth orbit. And that's it for this week. Please subscribe for more updates and more space news. Thank you so much.